Okay, Chapter 1, Lesson 5, using formulas. This is kind of a fun lesson, and in a lot of ways it's pretty easy. It looks scary because we have to use a lot of letters. It makes it look like algebra. Now most of you know how to find area of a rectangle. If I draw a rectangle, or something that looks close to a rectangle, it's not going to be perfect, and I let you know that it's 3 meters by 2 meters, you know that the area is 6 meters squared. Okay, you multiply 3 times the length times width, and that comes out to meters squared. And the actual formula, excuse me, actual formula for a rectangle is area equals LW, and that stands for length times width. Now, sometimes you might have a formula, or you might have an answer and you have some of the information but you don't have all of it. For instance, there's 3 letters here. There's A that stands for area, there's L that stands for length, and there's W that stands for width. And they might tell you that you have an area. They may say that it's a rectangle. They may tell you that the length is 8. Ooh, can't use that. I got to change for my pencil. They may say the length is like 8 centimeters. The area is 40 centimeters squared, but they don't tell you the width. So you've got 2 out of 3 of the letters. Area equals length times width, and I always like to write it out, and then I start plugging in what I do have. This is the area. Okay, the area is equal to 40. So I already know that, and now I know the length. The length is 8, but what I don't know is the width. So 8 times W. Okay, so 40 equals 8 times W. And if you know a related division problem means that 40 divided by 8 equals W. W times 8 equals 40. 40 divided by 8 equals W. So then you just do 40 divided by 8, and that's 5. So 5 equals width, which means that the width equals 5 centimeters, because 8 times 5 is 40. So if you have 2 out of 3, you can find what that third one is. And that's kind of how algebra works. Anytime there's a letter missing, if you know all the other information, you can solve for it. Okay, so that's basically what you do with a formula. Now, there's some interesting formulas. A common one is distance equals speed times time. Okay, so for instance, if I'm going 60 miles per hour for 2 hours, so this is my distance, this is my speed, and my time. The only thing I don't know is my distance, and if I plug those in, let's change colors. The distance equals speed times time, and I know my speed is 60 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour times 2 hours. And 60 times 2 is 120. Now I know that my distance then equals 120, and I also can figure out that it's miles. M, maybe you have to do it like MI so we don't get confused with meters. A lot of times MPH is written out, miles per hour. You've seen that before. Actually what's happening is the miles is over, it's like a fraction. If we were to write it a little differently, you'd have distance equals 60 miles per 1 hour, or like 1 hour, times 2 hours. And when we get a little farther in fractions, you'll realize that the hours cancel out, and you're just left with miles. 60 times 2 equals 120 miles. You're just left with the M, which I was calling miles, or mi for miles. Okay, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. The distance formula is kind of a cool one. If you know two of the things, you can solve for a third. We'll do one more. Distance equals speed times time. So what? Say we know our distance. Say we know that we went 90 miles. And we know that we were traveling for well, I don't know what's going to happen here, but we're going to say we were traveling for 2 hours. So we have our distance, 90 miles, and we have our time, but we don't know how fast we were going. We can plug this in. 90 equals the speed times the time, which is 2. Now usually in algebra we don't write the letter and then the number, so it would be better if we rewrite that. 90 equals 2s. S times 2 is the same as 2 times s, so I'm allowed to do that. That works out okay. So 90 equals 2 times s. What can I do to figure out 90 equals 2 times s? I'm going to use the old-fashioned times x. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So 90 divided by 2 equals s. And you can use a calculator, or you can cut 90 in half. 100 in half is 50. 80 in half is 40. So you've got 50 on the top for 100, 40 on the bottom for 80. So 90 in half would be right in the middle. It would be 45. And you might be able to do that in your head. You can get a calculator. 90 divided by 2 is 45. So speed equals 45 miles per hour. 45 miles per hour. So if you go 45 miles per hour for 2 hours, you've gone 90 miles. And that kind of makes sense. So you can solve all kinds of formula type problems if you know two of the three things. And I think that'll do it for this lesson. You're doing several things with polygons. You have to learn the formula for a trapezoid, learn the formula for a triangle, learn the formula for a parallelogram, and maybe I'll do a whole video for that. You have some tangrams to help you do that, but maybe if you see a video coming out soon, look for it on how to find those areas. Okay, have a nice day.